Hello and welcome to day 2 of the I Am Self-Love. So we've come to a point or a part in our work where we want to check in on how are you feeling about I Am Self-Love. We spoke yesterday about love being on so many different levels. We have today's class and we also have our homework. So I'm going to go with the homework first so that then we can, and then we'll cut off at a certain time and move into the classwork. So who would like to talk about anything that they had thoughts, insight, questions, trouble about the homework? So yesterday's work, you answered a bunch of questions, everybody, and that was very cool. I'm trying to pull up the integrative workbook. I had yesterday's up, and I want to pull up the workbook. Okay, great. So yesterday we spoke about, in your homework, there's questions. Sorry, let me get to the homework. Boy, yesterday was a big day. Okay, integrative homework. You had your contentment video. Who listened to contentment and how did that feel for you? Nothing like putting y'all on the spot. You guys can come off of mute.
Contentment is was very blissful. It's something that you don't often think about. Like joy, you think, oh, I want to feel joy, like jumping out of my skin joy. But I have health issues, so I don't always feel joy. I can't get myself
Right.
that far.
Yeah.
When I'm in pain, I'm not jumping up and down on the bed. But contentment was more a peacefulness, abiding in a state of peacefulness and stillness, almost like when you're in a state of, when they say seek, go within and seek for that still small voice. Mm-hmm. And for me, that place of contentment is like what they're describing, in that finding that still small voice within you, that peace, that harmony, that flow, that ease.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. That's why I had mentioned that that I was surprised when another clergy person had said to me, what is it like to feel that connection with God? She obviously was struggling in her own practice and all that. So grounding into who we are, who we inherently are, a higher self, the divine, Buddha, whatever, you follow whatever's your highest space. Excuse me. Being grounded into that, knowing who you are, is very important. Very important. So I'm glad that you felt peaceful with it and still, because it was there as your first evidence of a somatic practice that we did together. So if those of you who didn't realize it, that's what it is. Somatic is these experiences we get to do with the body to relax us, to regulate us. We go around life as deregulated human beings, triggered, stressed, chaos, all this stuff, until we learn how to shift our inner space within who we are to being love, to being smooth, to being joy, to being all the things that you perhaps wanted to be. So any more thoughts on the homework? As I brought up the daily for yesterday, so who were the biggest influences in your life? And what did they teach you about life? Let's talk about that. I will share the reason this came up so profoundly and why it teaches us. When I created the Dream, Believe, Create process and got out of that space in 2008. What I experienced during that was, how do I find passion and how do I move forward with creating the life that I want? I had come out of, as you guys remember me talking about yesterday, I was in a wheelchair. I was sitting on the couch. I heard this voice from God. I just sat there for 2 hours every morning and 2 hours every night from that injury and head injury that I had, where after so it started before the wheelchair. At 9/11, doesn't matter what we think or believe what happened, the United States was in chaos for the first time since the Mexican-American War. And so it was so frightening that, whoops, I didn't let somebody in, sorry. It was so frightening that I was rattled to my core. And I was one who was deemed with CPTSD, complex for war victims or childhood trauma. And so for me, that threw me off. The frontal lobe of my brain burnt out, and I was told that I would never be able to function again. Once it goes offline, you're not functioning. I am, not that I'm bragging, but I've done a lot of clarity work, a lot of healing work over the last 15 years. I am the most alive individual that I've ever met, because it's not, and maybe because I was on death's door, I had to take that leap of faith so strongly to save my own life, that once you go past some of the bullshit, and we will call it bullshit, you don't ever go back, right? Because who wants to go back to bullshit? So that's the power of this work, of creating someone that you can look up to. My grandmother, my mother's mother, was an amazing metaphysical practitioner. I used to go with her. Back then we used to call clients patients, and I used to go with her to her patients. And I was always in awe of watching her. And then I also told you guys that it was my father's great great grandmother. And the story's really cool. I didn't get into the story. My family left on my father's side. I found out that I'm not even his blood child through DNA 4 years ago, but he's still my daddy. And so, and this is still my story, because I decided that it's my story because it's what I grew up with and what I resonate with. So my dad's family was Spanish, and during the Inquisition in 1492, they escaped to the Basque area and then up through Portugal. Then they sailed down through around and up to Brazil and made their way up to what's Arizona today, but it was Mexico when they arrived. And my grandmother was, great 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 grandmother, was taken away by a Yaqui Indian. So apparently they were in love. He just came by the hacienda, literally threw her on the back of the horse, and they were gone. But what happened after they had children and he died was she came back to her family, as people do, right? To be with her family, with their children, and they were gone. Her parents were dead. And she found out that her brother had a piece of a Spanish land grant in California. And so she went out there, and it's Van Nuys today, one of the largest cities in Los Angeles. In the San Fernando Valley, it's the largest city. It's where their Supreme Court is and all that. So my family created that. She had a stagecoach stop. She had a mercantile store. They had a Holy Roller Church. They had all this stuff. They had all this stuff that created a town. So I look up to her for that. Wow. Right. So in the homework where it says in the workbook for yesterday, where it says, who do you look up to and why? This is why it's important for you to choose something to align yourself with. Because if you don't know who you are and have that power, all the little whimsical stuff that goes on in our beautiful brains will take us back out of alignment. You've got to know who you are so you can move forward and heal the rest. So that is why in the workbook, in the integrative workbook, that's why the work is so important to understand. Here's a question. who were the biggest influence in your life so far? Who were they? They might not be as exciting as mine, but that's okay. They're exciting to me. They might not be to you. And then the whole thing about, and what did they teach you? And who should you be? And what are you gleaning from this experience? And I also said, if you don't have family, so I work with people who are adopted. That's one reason why I said, turns out I found out 4 years ago that I don't carry my daddy's bloodlines, but I do in my heart and I do spiritually. So it doesn't matter where you came from or who your mama was. That doesn't affect who you are. Did you guys hear that? Did you feel that? That it doesn't matter where you came from and who you are. You are creating you today. And that's the most important thing. It's not about lying. It's about, okay, so yesterday this came up in an interview that I did for somebody for our overcoming overwhelm, that Lori and I have a show coming out in September. For a minute, I thought she was in this class. That's why I had to stop and think for a second. And now I can't remember what that was about. Shoot. Sorry, it'll come back. The power of who we are is so important for you guys to know, so that you can heal who you are. So that in your darkest times, when somebody says or an experience comes up or somebody dies, you're not thrown back into the spaces that you were before. You are who you are. You are who you've created. And it's true about right now. Who you've created yourself so far is who you are. But now, because the work is new to people, now you get the chance to change things around. Okay, I remembered it. Thank you. We just went back around here. So when I was interviewing this person yesterday, Ruthie, we were talking about how we change in healing our stories, right? So the inner child, we go in and we love and nurture, and that changes the storyline of who we are. We don't lie about, oh, no, we weren't at McDonald's, we went to Disneyland. It's not about changing the story. It's about changing the energy of the story. So for 15 years, I've called this work breaking the energy of the story. So what if you could break the energy of your story that didn't fit you? What if you could break the energy of that overwhelms you so that it doesn't overwhelm you anymore? That's the power that you guys get to have by doing your work, this work, and by growing from it. So if you didn't do it yesterday, okay, just take a look at it today and work through that. We ask that you put in about 15 minutes for that. Let's see, what else do we have? And so what is your definition of success? How many hours do you work in a week? The reason we ask you these questions is so that you know who you are, right? And Danielle, I just saw that you sent a message. We'll get to that in a minute, honey. So if you know who you are, nobody can change your mind of who you are, right? If you liked chocolate ice cream and somebody's trying to give you pistachio and they're saying you really like it, it's your thing, you're going to say, no, it's not. I like chocolate. I'm not into pistachios. And so you have to know who you are. So when we ask you also, how many hours a week do you work or do you want to work? We have a choice to create everything, even our work weeks. Why do you think I'm a coach? Why do you think I'm a coach and a teacher and a speaker and an author? Because I love this work. I get to create who I am. I did create who I am. And I do it every day by showing up for myself, showing up for my people. But I'm not saying that you have to be at that space right now. We're just having you expand your awareness of who you are. And so you don't have to work 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week. And what about this? I'm not even looking down there on that piece of paper at the moment. So what about this? How much playtime should you get for every work hour? Has anybody ever brought that up to you? Isn't that a powerful thing? How many hours of play in a day do you get? You get as much as you want. You also should be getting as much as you work. So if you put in 5 or 6 hours a day, now some of you can't do that. I understand you have little children, you have spouses that aren't in alignment with you. You might even be working also a 9 to 5. We're just going to call it a regular job, right? So you can't see your way in or out of this area. That's why to open the expansion of who you are is the most powerful experience that you're going to have. This is why when we talk about everything is self-love, like I mentioned yesterday, everything in your experience is love. It means that you get to choose everything, even how you breathe. Even how you breathe. So isn't that a lot more empowering than shut the hell up and leave me alone experience? Excuse me, that just came through. Don't know why, don't know who needed to hear that, but someone did. So we are greater, more powerful than anyone has ever allowed us to be. And it goes back to where we started off yesterday in our inauthentic or our authentic or civic self, right? We're working to become authentic, to know what that's like, to feel like, rather than your civic self that you were trained by others, by your mama, by your grandma, by your teacher, by your best friend's mama. Everybody is keeping all the little chicks in line, giving their own motherly advice or horrible advice, whatever. And so we pick up on that. And to be good children or good boys or good girls, we actually become that. When really, I remember as a little girl, my mom used to serve so funny. I saw a can of Cheerios, not Cheerios, SpaghettiOs in my head. My mom used to serve us when we were little. The most disgusting food, in my opinion, until I was like 7 years old and she got on a health kick. She used to serve us SpaghettiOs. Everybody loves SpaghettiOs. There were commercials all over when I was a kid, eating your SpaghettiOs. And I always thought it was too sweet, too woo. They put sugar in all that canned stuff. And so even as a little girl, I knew I didn't like that, but everybody else loved SpaghettiOs. So it's the same thing. I would tell people I love SpaghettiOs. I had a conversation with a friend last week about SpaghettiOs. It was so funny that they're coming up again. I haven't talked about it in my whole life. And then all of a sudden, SpaghettiOs are coming up. So we have to know about ourselves, who we are and what we want, rather than civically following along like a brainless person or somebody who's asleep. We get to actually choose and be who we want to be. And what that does is it empowers you to have confidence, to have love, to have awareness, to have self-actualization, realization, awarenesses that you may never have heard or felt before. So also in this upcoming section, and since we're not talking a lot, let me answer Daniela's question before I go on. What I first question was how to know if God is speaking to you, and the second question is share the changing of your energy. Let me do the breaking the energy of your story first. So when we do the inner child work, I've always called it breaking the energy of your story. There's other psychology aspects of it, like parts work, is also part of the inner child. We're dealing with a part or a system of who we are from way back. Parts work can even work, and so can inner child work, the process that I have recorded as one of the uh, things that you go through to work through your storyline. So in the inner child work, we go in, I guide you down, I take you through hypnosis, you're into your safe space, and you're meeting your inner child for the first time. Oftentimes the little child hides because it's even afraid of you. Sometimes she comes running to you, or he comes running to you. It's different for each person. And that's according to how closed down they are, how open they are, what their life was like. And this is one of the aspects, well, it had been one of my most favorite aspects about the work, because when you can help somebody change their younger story of abuse, victimhood, whatever it is, I don't know why I'm hiccuping, whatever it is, it's amazing. So changing the energy of your story, Daniela, is literally like knocking the wind out of a horrific nightmare experience. So some of the work I can only go by my own or other clients' work that I can't do it with you because we haven't worked together yet. So say there was a story when you were younger of a teacher. I'm thinking now of my first grade teacher at Christian Day, who used to take us in a back room and paddle our butts with a wooden paddle. And that is a really horrific experience for a little child to go through. And I remember telling the other kids, don't cry. I mean, I was like a little bully, don't cry, because they're going to do it more. And so I wasn't a bully, but I'm just, when I think about that, there was really no love and compassion. I was trying to save my own dignity. So if I took that into the inner child experience, if that's what came forward, I would love and nurture her as the grown-up woman that I am today, loving and nurturing my inner child. So if you have children, then you would love your child as much as you love your children. If you've never experienced that kind of love yet, don't worry. Most of us know what it's like to love a kitten or a puppy or a bunny or something like that. We want to take care of them. We want to love them. We want the best for them. So that's how you treat yourself. In the work that goes on, let me let this person in. Sorry. In the work that you process through, you're seeing that with you as a grown-up adult standing by your side, holding your hand, taking the little 7-year-old or whatever age you are through the process with the teacher in the back room, it's not going to be as frightening. You could even say to her, no, I don't accept this. I want to tell my mother, or call my mom, whatever it is that gives you the power to recreate the wound, to take the energy out of that story, is what you need to do. Now, remember, we don't lie about stuff like, oh, that never happened. You don't want to keep pushing your stuff away from you. You don't want to repel it. You want to heal it. You want to love it. So that's what changing the energy of your story is about, is changing the energy within these traumatic, dramatic experiences so that you don't keep regurgitating them up to the world. Oh, this is what happened. And I'm not, please forgive me. I did this. I did this dating at 45 and 46 years old until I learned that it wasn't the way to go. And I'm a teacher of this stuff. It's just human nature. So we don't want to regurgitate our information, our stories out to the world. We want to be healed, right? It was actually during my dating life, after my first husband, between my second husband, that I realized, oh, my work for myself needs to be slightly different because I'm doing something that I don't want to do. You know, that regurgitating, that processing of the story over and over and over. Let it go, heal it. heal it. It may go back to needing more work, the mother wound, the father wound, something like that that needs to be healed. So, Daniela, that's what changing the energy of your story is about, literally. It's about taking these overwhelming experiences that you can barely live with and changing that so that it doesn't affect you that way. Now, the other question that we have is how to know if really God's voice is speaking to me. So that's really very powerful. I think I brought it up yesterday in the class that one of the books that I recommend is Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. And usually my private clients have to read that. And I ask them to please at least get through. Don't read book 2 and 3. That's about political stuff that has nothing to do with love. Please try to get through to chapter 9 because you'd also hit the chapter on marriage, which is about relationships. The whole book is fabulous. But the early part allows us to understand what our soul is talking about. It talks to you about listening to your soul. It teaches you. In there, it also discusses the conversations that go on in your head. So now we're talking about mindfulness, right? And we're talking about limiting the extra chaos that most people struggle with, which is the one area that is God compared to all the other voices and all the other information, the thousands of things. One of the ways in which I taught mindfulness and meditation was to think of your thoughts as clouds going by, and you're going to ping them away. Ping. So that was my early work. Now that I'm more advanced in it, we have this ability to change our mind, our awareness of what we want to think by talking to ourselves. How simplistic is that? Instead of running away, we get to talk to ourselves. So that's the beauty of it. If you don't like an experience, I don't like this experience. I want something different. You're reprogramming, you're setting new patterns. We talked about patterns yesterday. You're setting new patterns in your awareness. And so it's very important to understand you have more power than anyone has ever given you. That's why I am self-love. Because you are more powerful than anyone has ever allowed you to be. Maybe anyone other than me or Lori, but some of you are just meeting us, some of you are not. You hold everything. And for those of you who don't know, because she's not here right now, Lori's my business partner. We have the Greatest You Academy. So you have this incredible ability within yourself to change, to heal the wounds, to heal everything about you. Guess what happens when you learn how to heal your inner emotional wounds? Get rid of the fear. Know, as Daniela said, how do I know when God's voice is talking to me? Know that you're in that right alignment. I'm going to come back to that and share an experience so you guys can see my drastic change when I could tell the difference. But you need to know that you are loved, first and foremost, even if your parents never told you. You are divinely loved. You are universally loved. You are humanly loved. Now, what does love and self-love have to do with love? I know that sounds funny, but let's break it down really quick here. You are existing the way you are, your civic self, in and out of your authentic self, right? You are existing. What would it be like for you to be in total control of your experience, to be able to say, I want to become this, and be guided through to become that, whether it's an attorney, a coach, an artist, a happy person, someone who laughs a lot, somebody who loves a lot. There's a different experience of existence and love. When I said yesterday that everything is love, self-love, It's the way you look at the sky. It's the way you talk to people. It's the way you present yourself. It's the way you eat, the way you smell. I'm not talking about your body odor. I'm talking about the things you smell. On my desk, I keep this for grounding. This is a somatic practice. This is grapefruit. One of my favorite essences. Ladies, did you know that men, when we wear grapefruit, see us as 15 years younger? They do. There was a study done. So have things around you. We are sensual beings. We are souls in a human body. We are supposed to connect to body, mind, and spirit on every level. So a soulful person is believe it or not, a sensual person. A sensual person is one who has gotten in touch with their senses. They're not afraid to feel. They're not afraid to exhibit things. They're not afraid. I'm not talking about fighting. I'm talking about, I want to go walk my dog in my bathing suit. I mean, I personally would never do that. But those of you who do, go girl. So it's about doing whatever you want to do in your life. Now, remember, we don't do things to harm people. We do things to grow ourselves, to love more. So over here, I said I would get back to the story really quick on how to know if you're really listening to God's voice speaking. Sorry, sometimes when I'm channeling, which I do a lot when I talk, that's how I can pull stuff back in. It's hard for me to read, because I'm changing brains there. So when I recommended that Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch, I had a gorgeous experience when I first met my husband. My husband is a professional diver and was an ascension coach when I met him. He doesn't do that work anymore, but he really ignited me. We were supposed to be together so that my activation on a certain level would take off on a certain space. And so when I was reading Conversations with God and really digging, I had read it many times, and I suggest that you read different books again down the road once you grow. Why? Because you have a new perspective. You're catching new things. So in this, I spent like 2 days. I put myself into my own retreat where I literally was with candles listening to sound therapy like Gregorian chants and all these other framework of sound. And it got to the place where it started talking about the relationship with God and man and listening to all the voices and calming them down. And I understood so clearly by putting myself into that experiential place that I was listening to all these other sounds, noises, chaos that was still there. I went to take a shower, and all of a sudden in the shower, the weirdest thing happened to me. I heard a voice that laughed, a man's voice, very deep. Oh, you're finally listening. And I looked around my shower, and I swear I felt like there were thousands of people in there. And then it just went to me and literally to me and God. And it was so powerful. I've never forgotten that experience. And I know now that there are many voices, and we listen to the higher self, the one that we naturally are. We are each connected as humans with souls to the divine. And or if you don't believe in soul, it's okay. There's life force, prana. There's all these other ways to connect to yourself. That was something I used to deal with when I started out as a spiritual teacher, self-love teacher, love teacher, all of that together. I was like, well, I can't work with an atheist. We don't think alike. And then I had to stretch myself because I had worked with, and I'm going to say fundamentalists because they're Orthodox. I've worked with Orthodox Jews. I've worked with Muslims. I've worked with Hare Krishnas. I've worked with people that call themselves fundamentalist Catholics. All these different places where you think that you can't reach people, you can. Why? Because love is love. That's all there is to it. And so when you put yourself in that space, there's nothing else, nothing greater. So then back to the work and today. We are going to move to day 2 here really quickly. So we talked about yesterday's assignments. Today is recognizing authenticity. Learn how to recognize when you are in touch with your authentic self and experience a profound sense of self-love that arises from that connection. So we have spent the last probably 20 minutes of our talk so far discussing what that is like, that profound connection with self. You heard about it in the inner child stuff that we were talking about, breaking the energy of the story. You also heard about that profound connection when we're talking about listening to the voice of God as opposed to all the other chaotic sounds that are out in our area, right, around us. So what is it for you, right, to listen to and experience that profound sense of self-love that arises from this or that connection with yourself? Have you ever stopped and said, this is also body love work, somatic work, emotional intelligence work, to say to yourself in an experience, you stop and you say, how am I feeling? Do I like this? Or do I not like this? And if it's an experience that you don't like, you ask for something different. I've done this many times, healings with relationships with men that I've been with before I was with my husband. I would be like, I don't want to think about this and I don't want their energy coming in. And I was adamant about it and I would push it away. And you work on that until you retrain your synapses, your brain function to start a new pattern, to start a new progressive pattern. And when you're retraining yourself with all this beautiful stuff you have at your fingertips, make sure that it's all based in love. Because if you're calling in love and self-love, everything in your life is love. You may say, and I want to hit this really quick because you may say, well, we get sick at times and I don't feel like I'm have that capacity of love or self-love. I can't get beyond the pain or the space that I'm not connected right. That's just your own old way of thinking. What would it be like to actually connect to yourself in love when you're not well? I often talk about those years in the early of the pandemic with cancer and how I focused my mindset to always be in the space of meditation or up-leveling my own awareness, connecting to God, reciting spiritual words that brought me great love and joy. So for a couple years, I became a monk, more or less, but it delivered me today to where I am. I was already well on my way, but at this point, it's really a beautiful, calm space. So this is where I want you guys to be able to be. If you're sick, if you're healthy, whatever, to be in the space of love so that you return to your highest self of wellness, health, success. It's a beautiful awareness to develop for yourself. Okay, so when we talk about this profound sense of self-love that arises from this connection of knowing our authentic self, right? It literally is, we're listening to our higher self. When we're in the space of our elevated self, our authentic self, the space that we've worked on to grow, the self-love, all of it, it is a profound different space. Your conversation outward and inward are going to be completely different. You're going to learn how to speak almost a new language. It's the language of love. It's the language of literally being able to move through things, not how you used to be. I don't know if you guys, here's an example. And I don't know if you've experienced it personally or have witnessed it somehow, or it's been you, but there are a lot of people who are doing a lot of beautiful work for themselves, and yet they don't take it to the level of actually changing structurally who they are. They get in their car and they start yelling and cursing at the car next to them. How much of love or divinity is that? You have taken yourself out of your own alignment once you got in your car. You could be perfect in your house. You could have had a great lunch with some girlfriends out, and you get in your car and you hit the highway, and all of a sudden everybody is an SOB. So who are you, right? Choose a lane, choose a side. Who do you want to be? Do you want to be in a place of love, or do you want to be this wishy-washy? Sometimes I'm okay and sometimes I'm not. Now, look, if you're in that space, it's okay. I'm not trying to chastise you. I'm simply showing you a picture of what could be. And perhaps it's the first time that maybe you ever heard that. So what could be is a new doorway to who you are. I am freezing here. I have to go turn off my fans. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm getting to the point where my teeth are chattering. Okay. And here we are. Okay. All right, guys. So you can see the difference in how important it is to love and respect yourself. And be aware that your civic self is who you have developed throughout your life. By knowing, and now you get to change everything by knowing who you actually are, which is the work that you're doing in here. Okay, I'm trying to go through this. So one of the little things, there's a few little things that I just want to touch over. I'm the kind of teacher that just goes off on the work and as it's inspired to me, but I also have something that I do want to follow. So I'm going to expand on this a little bit. Okay, so we have neurological pathways that do support the old ways of being. So it's automatic to easily go back to. Doing something different takes conscious effort and strength. So remember how we talked about driving your car, right? Here you are spiritual at home or happy or joyous, and then out with friends, and then you get in your car and you start yelling at the people in the lane next to you. So that example shows us that we go back to our civic self. We go back to our old patterns until we catch ourselves and we move forward. I'm going to give you guys a tip on how to shift forward. It's a mindset tip. It's my favorite thing. It actually works. So you're going to set your alarm 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night. And what that alarm says is, check my thinking. How simple is that? So when it goes off, you think, how have I been? What have I been thinking? Have I been in discord or harmony? And so with all of that, you get to choose and be who you are with your own awareness, right? So when you realize, oh boy, I've been fighting with the neighbor or the person in the lane next to me when I was driving, whatever the scenario is, you get to change that. Don't judge yourself, just shift it. So when we talk here where it says we have this neurological pathway that does support the old ways, but we can recreate it, right, with consciousness. So it's the exact same conscious patterns that you use when you aren't feeling good in a situation and you stop to identify, do I like this or not? And then you get to choose, yeah, this feels really good. I want more of this. Or no, I don't want this. I want to bring in joy. So we can actually bring in everything that we want by identifying, right, consciously that we want to change. This is how we create new thought patterns. This is how we elevate the authentic self. You can even ask yourself in many situations, am I being authentically true to who I am, or am I doing the civic stuff, just what everybody else has suggested or said? So sorry, somebody started talking through on there. So this is all about you and what you get to do and who you get to be. There is nothing more powerful than gifting you this space and time right now for you to be and become who you actually want to be. So go to your integrative workbooks, not now, after class. And if you haven't done day one, I suggest you do day one because they do build on each other, right? Oh, so let's get back to the mindset gift that I'm giving you guys. So you set your alarm and you look at it, right? What am I thinking? You track through, you do that 3 times a day. And then what you're going to notice in a couple weeks is you're already monitoring, maybe even a couple days. It doesn't have to be a couple weeks. You start to monitor yourself and self-correct. You get to say, wait a minute, I just yelled at my boss, or I just yelled at my coworker, or they just yelled at me and that threw me out of alignment. I could have gone into the bathroom really quick and done one of my exercises. Or I could have sat down at my desk in my cubicle and done one of my grounding exercises. Nobody would have seen me. So this is why this all works together so beautifully. You don't have to stay in your mindset. And I have to also share, remember I told you for those 2 years, I was doing everything I could to change my way of being, to become the monk, the spiritual, over the warrior wanting to kill cancer. I wanted to learn how to love it, how to shift it. And so in that space, we all have the choice to create and develop who we want to be. It's not just my genius, it's your genius too. And to respect yourself and love yourself enough to allow that transformational change is the biggest gift that you could ever give yourself. Okay, so if you have not joined the Facebook group, we would love you to. That is the Greatest You Revolution on Facebook. Each day I put up a post. This is what we talked about. Why don't you, share your ideas, your insights, your thoughts? So do that. Also, feel free to book your 15-minute session with me. Some of you I might take longer with, but it's okay. Just enjoy that. That's for you guys. Also know that we have the Greatest You Academy and it's in open enrollment now. So lots for you to do about shift and change. The mindset is very powerful. I want to also encourage you to do journaling. Thoughts come up, concepts come up, journal it. My private clients, or even in the academy, I have you guys take buy lots of spiral bound notebooks for yourself. I just saw that I'm buying for my clients to keep my notes in. There's a 4-pack on Amazon that's really gorgeous, perfect. And then each person gets their own thing. And so what I'm saying for you guys with these multiple notebooks is you use one for the inner child, you use one for the mirror work, you use one for just journaling your thoughts in the morning or whatever. You do a gratitude journal. If you're committed to yourself, you're committed to yourself. So you guys know that I've done this work forever. Guess what I've been doing lately? And what I did last year? I too pick up stuff in areas that I need growth. After chemo, I recognized that my brain was getting slow. So I started doing puzzles and games to strengthen my brain. I recently joined, I think it's Headspace or Head One, and they have these books on there that are broken down. Instead of listening 8 hours to one book, 15 minutes to 20 minutes, they put all the powerful stuff you need to know in that book in that 20 minutes. So you can go through and train your brain any way you want. Do you see the choice is yours? It never stops, it never ends. We love ourselves from the moment we recognize that we want love. We shift that inward. And then we keep growing to these magnificent beings that we get to pour love out onto others. So do get yourself little tiny journal books. Even these that are usually black, the composition, I like them with color. So do this for you, not because I'm asking you, but it's yes, there it is, Nicole. But it's an opportunity for you also, as one who writes all day long. The specific reason for the different books is so that you can move in and out of each section and be able to find where you left off, right? You want that one mirror book to experience everything that's coming up when you say, I love you in the mirror, not I love you in your name. Soul has had many names. We don't need to add the name for distraction. You're going to write down, oh, today I felt like I did in the 6th grade. I was naked in class in my nightmares or whatever it is, right? And then you work through that. You don't want to forget or deplete anything. It's coming up to be healed. And that's the beauty of life. When you love more, you get to heal more. You get to gift more of the power of who you are to others without taking any energy away. You get to understand what energy is and close it down so that it doesn't disrupt you. So look at yourself in all of the aspects that we spoke about today. And absolutely, if you didn't do yesterday's work, it can be done in 5 minutes even. Just review it, see where it takes you, because this is your story, not mine. I'm doing my story. And that's the beautiful thing. We all have our own stories, like roses growing on a bush, and then they come together to make the most beautiful bouquets when we visit each other. Any questions before we say goodbye? No? No questions? All right, everybody, I'm going to turn off the recording.